So I'm going to continue to learn Haskell, and I'm just gonna do Haskell today. And I'm probably going to try to solve this problem here. Just gonna use ChatGPT and try to see if I can find a solution. If I can't, then I'm just gonna continue to read the source code here. It is kind of frustrating me a bit because it is very hard to find resources that explain. So what I wanted to find is like on the documentation or somewhere all the keywords that are built in from the language and then the explanation of what they do. But it's very hard to find this, so it's kind of frustrating. But I just realized that I was thinking about it the wrong way, I think, on this thing here. So basically here, I didn't realize, but I think that I'm pretty sure now that this is the actual definition. But it is kind of weird to me because it is using the term keyword here. So according to ChatGPT, the term keyword doesn't come from any libraries. It comes from the project. And it seems that it is defining here. But if it is defining here, then how is it possible to be using here? And I'm still not sure about this, but I'm pretty sure. I think that the only thing that makes sense is that this is the actual definition of what term is. And then for whatever reason, this is like a type that can happen on other places like here, where it doesn't have to be a specific keyword from the language, and you can still use the keyword because the compiler is gonna understand. But I'm not 100% sure about this. So that's kind of one of the things that I'm trying to figure out. I think mainly that's the thing that I'm trying to clarify now, because it's very confusing. So I think that the type is a built-in keyword from Haskell, and it allows you to create an alias, and that's according to GPT as well, but I think it makes sense, just common sense. So it's kind of like saying that if you're using this ti is going to be equal to term, but it doesn't define a term or say anything like all the other places they use this term. It doesn't look like it is defining or declaring, so I don't understand very well. So the only thing that would make sense is if Haskell is kind of like JavaScript in the sense that JavaScript puts every definition, I think, on the top of the file. So it doesn't really matter the order in which you put things because the interpreter is going to put them in the beginning of the file. So it only matters to the context that sometimes you're going to get undefined values because of the order in which JavaScript interpreter is going to put each thing in the beginning of the file. So if it is something similar here, then I think that makes sense, but it's still kind of confusing. So the way that I'm reading this here now is that this is going to define the thing here, but it's very hard to find content that explains just this stuff. And as far as I understand, the data keyword is for declaring or defining algebraic data types. And this is just like I was thinking before, this OR operators here. This is like a pattern matching thing. So it allows you to initialize this term here with any of these things here as constructors. And the order is going to be based on the sequence. So whatever matches the thing first is the one that is going to be used. So it's similar to a generic template on C++, but it's not the same. But it's very similar. So N, L, A are generic terms that you can pass. And based on the video, I think that they do work as arguments, separate arguments. I think last time ChatGPT said that it's just one argument, but I think that's wrong. It's probably just a function or algebraic data type that receives 3 arguments and then creates whatever, depending on the context, is going to create one of these things here. Yo, thank you for the follow. I don't read the chat, so just letting you know. So I'm going to start another chat here. And I think probably the best thing to do. Also, I was thinking about going from the beginning there. So this one, it seems kind of weird because it's now I'm pretty sure that the entry point is going to be on the main. So this is like the main function, and IO is, I think that IO is a monad, but monad is very confusing, so I don't understand very well the definition of what a monad is yet. I kind of understand like the concepts, but it's not very clear to me. But like the phrase that's everyone says is that monads is a monoid in the category of endofunctors. And then as a functor seems to be, based on the video of the explanation, if I understood correctly, from this guy here, it seems to be a function or a collection of functions that takes objects from one set to another and maintain the structure of the objects. So if you imagine that you have a graph that has nodes and edges on one set, and you want to change the values of those nodes, you preserve the structure of the graph, that would be considered as a functor. So it's like taking all the objects from one set and putting on the other while preserving the structure of the objects. And then an endofunctor would be a functor that changes the objects but doesn't move them to a different set, keeps them on the same set. And a monoid, as far as I understand, is like when you have connections between different objects. And I think that they can be on the same set as well. So a monoid would be like a function. I think the easiest explanation that I've seen is a flattened map. So let's say you have a list, and the list has objects, and then you apply a map to the list, and you flatten the map after, so you have the same structure. So the structure of the list is preserved, but the objects inside of the list change. And that would be considered as a monad. But I'm not 100% sure if that's how it works. But this is basically like the main on C++. So it's going to be the entry points. And here what I think is doing is using, it's going to call these 3 different functions here. And I think this is probably another function. The dollar sign is just a simplification for putting the brackets here. So it's basically the same thing, but it's just an easier way to do it, I think. So I think that this is going to come from this testing library, and it's going to call these 3 different functions here. So if I can't use ChatGPT to solve this, I'm probably going to go over one by one there. Or try to go over sequentially and then read the code and understand what happens. I think I'm going to put some music for myself. This is another, like, it is frustrating because it feels unnecessary. Like, it feels that it shouldn't take this. Like, the problem is that a lot of the things, the resources, they talk about a bunch of stuff that is not relevant to what I'm trying to solve. And because I already have experience from other programming languages, it feels like it doesn't matter that much because I kind of understand. So for example, some resources are going to explain the concept of guard, which is the thing that I was looking at uses, so which is basically this OR operator. But there isn't anything related to this stuff here, and it's kind of hard to think about like what keywords can you use and what search terms can you use to try to understand. Because the idea here that I want to understand is whether or not it's possible for this should be the definition of the term, and for the term should be used here. But then this is gonna get into the structure of how the compiler works, and like there probably are resources that talk about this, but the issue is gonna be the paradox of search, because the content that is gonna talk about this is gonna be masked, or it's gonna be like the entry point for the content is gonna be based on keywords that a beginner doesn't know. And that's the paradox of the beginner when you're learning something. So it's like the beginner programmer that's going to learn JavaScript, but once you understand the concepts of the first principles that are going to be fundamental principles for the programming language, he's not going to be able to, when he searches for JavaScript, most of the content is not going to talk about that. So yeah, I think it's basically the same problem here, and it's going to be like a fundamental problem everywhere. Whenever you're learning something, and it's kind of frustrating, but it is what it is. Then yeah, all the content that I'm gonna search is gonna spend a bunch of time talking about things that doesn't matter that much, and it's gonna take me a lot of time to figure out how to come up with questions that are gonna allow me to find the keywords that are gonna allow me to explore or to understand like more in-depth concepts. And I think it's gonna be something related. Either it's gonna be something related to the compiler or it's something related to the import system. But based on ChatGPT response, it seems that is not the case. So as far as I understand, these things here are the data. I'm pretty sure that is a built-in library, or if it's not a built-in library, it's an external library from the project because I've seen everywhere that this is used. So I'm pretty sure that's how this one it is from externally or built-in. I think like list would be the same way that list works on other programming languages. And this deriving is a way, is like a REPL or a string on Python, where you can use the dunder string or dunder REPL to print the class. So I think that would be similar to this, using this deriving. And this is probably going to be a variation of the derive that they usually use, which is this deriving here. But I still don't understand very well how this works. And then this would be another built-in class that has this monad, which is this thing that is used a lot in Haskell as far as I understand, which is the stuff that I try to explain, but I'm still not 100% sure on how it works. And I think that the bounds is also a built-in library or external library that uses these things here. So like basically all of these I think are probably not related to the term there, keyword. And these ones seem to be not related to the term as well. So what that means is that it probably has to be coming from this project. So I think that the only thing that makes sense is that the definition is there. Because in this file is the other files, I think I looked into it as well, and none of them seem to have something that would seem that is defined. And here is just like a function that is using this should declare a type, but it's not a definition of what the term is, and the other places is basically the same thing. So I think the only place where it seems to be defining the term is there, but it is kind of the thing that I don't know how to search for is how is this possible? Because I think like on other programming languages it could be, like for example in Python we have done their methods. I think JavaScript has something similar as well. That we can have situations where like depending on where you define where you put something is going to impact the thing that is on the bottom, if that makes sense. So it could be based on the type keyword here, I think. Maybe if I search for this, but it's hard to say. maybe should study this pretty library here, but I'm not really sure that makes sense. This is another thing that kind of, it's not really frustrating, but it's kind of hard, I guess, the to figure out is like where to put most of the attention, because I think it's gonna be the way that I think. I usually, regardless of how you think it's gonna be this, because it's probably based on first principles, on like laws of physics, but it's gonna be a funnel of information. So like, it's gonna follow the Pareto distribution, and the place you need to put your focus is gonna depend on what goals you have. So I think like in order to optimize the time, I have to find what places to spend most time studying. I think in the beginning, probably the best way to do this is just to go superficially over everything, but it depends on how, like, what matters the most, which is kind of like a paradoxical thing. I think it's the same thing with the search thing. Like, in order to figure out what is the most important, I have to understand how the code works. But in order to understand how the code works, I have to figure out what is most important. So it's kind of like a paradox in the beginning. Because here, like, I'm not really sure how to go about solving this. So I think that like the best thing that I can think about is to explore the pretty library and try to understand, because I think the error is based on the types. So is a type mismatch on this thing here, I think. I think he's saying that this expects to have so I guess I can start based on the keywords, maybe. I'm gonna put the code there. So I think this is basically, from what I've seen, they usually use this where when creating a class. But I think this would be more like an interface or something like this. But I think it might be like a class. So it's creating the class. This usage is this algebraic data type here. So I think 0, 1, and many can be considered as kind of generic things, unless they come from a library. So I guess I could ask this. So there's a bunch of different things actually. I think one is how does deriving work? Pretty 0. Let me see if I can understand the error. Problem is like, where does this come from? The match type n with fingerprints. And the ridge type. So maybe it is on the pretty.char function. Equation for pretty is 0 plus pretty char. Just gonna copy this first. As I'm gonna put all of the imports here. Automatically generate instances of certain types. So it is like kind of like a generic, so it doesn't come from Haskell. So now I'm gonna ask the other part here. So I think that is complaining based on the type of the string. So it's saying that this pretty dot char. So I think that pretty. I'm gonna ask this if pretty dot char is a function. Okay, so it's saying that is the wrong type. So I guess the question is how to figure out really usage internal doc. So it's saying that it's returning this type and is expecting another one. Yeah, I'm not really sure if there's an easy because I'm gonna have to spend time studying this library this year, I think. So I think what it's saying is that the return type here is this is another thing that I don't understand very well is like here it seems to be a generic type. So I'm not really sure what it means when it defines this. But I think is defining this is like it's kind of like a class which would have this usage type, and here is defining what each one is gonna be. So I think it's trying to define these as functions that are gonna return this thing, and this basically calls a pretty dot char, which is a function, and passes this thing here. And then it has a problem because of the return. But then, like, what does it mean? Because like this is generic, so how does it resolve the type? That's what I don't understand. I guess I can try to like do something like this and see what happens, but I think it's probably not gonna work. Yeah. So the other thing I learned, I think last time, was using this info thing here. And I think you can put the name of a library. So I'm gonna try to put this text there. So I don't understand how this. So maybe it is a built-in thing. Because if I use the pretty print one there, it does show some link to a GitHub repo. So I'm gonna ask if this is usage. So it's saying to put this here. So I guess I can try to put this on top of the this thing here. I think it's probably not gonna work. I'm not sure. Or maybe it is supposed to be like this. Let's see. Probably not sure. Also, it's complaining about this. See the error again. Maybe I can find examples of the doc here and try to see if I change the arguments. Let me see what happens if I put an integer. Just see how the error is gonna look. It's the same error, I think. It has to be defining here, this thing. Let me see if I can find anything on the instance. So it is kind of like creating a class. Like I think it's defining like like the name says an instance of the usage type, and then it's defining these types as being this function here. I think that's what it's doing. So whenever you use this thing here or this, you're gonna get the pretty.char. So like the question that I have, and I'm not really sure, is whether or not the error comes from the relationship between whatever is happening here and the left side, or I think that most likely the problem is the argument that this receives. But when I changed there, it didn't change the error, so I'm not really sure about this. It's saying that it's expecting this. Mesh type and printer C terminal. Show pretty dot doc. Like what the fuck this is mean? I guess another question would be, so let me see how I should put commands. See if this works. I'm not really sure. I'm just gonna delete this stuff. Let's see if I put like anything here, if he's gonna complain about the second one. I think it probably will. I'm curious to see what happens. Yeah, so now it complains about the other. So I think the issue has to be based on the function. So it's based on the arguments that the function is receiving, I think. So it's expecting this pretty prints. But I don't know what the fuck this means. That's the problem. I'm guessing that is based on the definition of this thing here, but I can't find the code. So that's kind of the problem. So it might be because of the way that this is being ported here. I wonder if I delete this line, what happens? N is a rigid type variable bound by the type signature for period for all. Let me try this one first. I'm gonna see what happens if I put this. I think it's gonna fail, but I wanna see if the error is gonna be the same. So this complaint doesn't exist, I think. Maybe if I put pretty dots doc. I'm pretty sure that I remember seeing this doc. I think the doc is used at some places. Not sure if it's from the pretty library, but I think it is. So it uses a doc here. So I'm gonna use this one there. So doc. And it puts doc here. See what happens. So I guess another thing you can try is to ask for example to ChatGPT of what kind of arguments. So I'm gonna ask both for the definition and for the arguments. Maybe try this before. So it might be because of this. Try come on still. So I think you have to build. So I'm gonna ask what if I can find the definition, or if ChatGPT knows the definition of that function. So both for the definition and for different kinds of arguments that it accepts. Executable. I think it's this file here. Probably not more. So I'm gonna ask to change. So it puts here. I'm just gonna copy there and see if it works. As I might be on the wrong thing. No, I think I am on the right level. I started. It's probably better to just focus on, because otherwise I'm gonna open a different branch and I'm gonna have to focus on the build system and stuff like that. I don't wanna think about this right now because I think that this might be built for working as a library or something. So there might be differences like that. So because here it doesn't have any the entry point files on the task folder. So I'm not 100% sure on how, like if this is meant to be a program or like if it's supposed to be used as a library or something like this. So I think because of that, it might be different the way that you build the files. So I think it's just better to focus on trying to solve the problem instead. Just see if I can build and get and see if it's gonna create any executable or something. So I'm gonna ask what uh, guys, I can look. Probably this is a good idea. So from the last time, I remember, I think when you press this is gonna show there a bunch of information, and then somewhere here there's a link, GitHub. So what I can do is just look for the pattern here. It is probably this library there, the one that is being used. So I'm gonna look for, I'll click on any file here. Let's see if I can look for the pattern. It's probably better just install or download, open. It's gonna be based, this problem. It's gonna be, if I put char, it's probably gonna be too many things. I think it's based on the, so maybe I can do it based on the folder path here. Let's see. But I think it's probably not gonna be a one-to-one thing as well. So like this is another issue, and I'm not really sure if it's worth it to go down this path now, because the translation of this thing here is not directly correlated with the thing there. So maybe if I search for this other keywords here, it's gonna be easier to find something. I'm basically trying to find the definition of the pretty.char there, but I'm pretty sure that the way that it works here is that like this is an alias, so it's basically replacing this library here with this. And this qualified here is used to force you to put the name of the library before calling the function. So what this is basically saying is that every time you want to access something from this library, you're gonna have to use this. So I think that this is like a function from this library here. So I'm trying to find the definition of the function because I think that's the where the error is coming from. But if I search for a char here, it's gonna be very difficult to find. And I'm not really sure if I search for the other words, it's gonna be easy or easier to find as well, because I don't understand very well the relationship between the way that is included here, imported into, and the structure of the project itself. Because this is going to involve the build system, and then it's going to get very annoying, I think, to figure out. I'm gonna build again, just see the error again. I'm gonna put here, see if I can find anything. Hmm. So the question is like, where is this coming from? So I guess the name is. If the name of the module is this, then what does it mean to access char there? Is it accessing the? I think that probably this is the name of the module. I guess I have to search for the char keyword. It might be coming from somewhere else as well. That's kind of the issue. Maybe it's this thing here. So I think that this is basically exposing the keywords from the module. So this should be like a definition here. Yeah, so it is the definition. Because here is basically there is complaining. It's complaining about this type here. So it's doc and so this is basically going to be a function that's is supposed to return. So it accepts a char and then it's supposed to return this value here, I think. Couldn't match type and expected. So this is supposed to be the return, I think. Your printer internal doc. It seems like it is complaining about the return. That's kind of the thing that is weird. As there is going to be calling the function. So I think that the string there would be like the char, because this is probably like the argument that the function receives. I think here it doesn't have anything. So I think that is just a random keyword. So maybe a good idea is to ask ChatGPT. Oh, it's sad though. So let me see if I understand this. It's complaining about the n type. Match and so I'm gonna ask so the 0 is supposed to be the argument. So it's complaining about the return type. So the issue is, so like this is gonna be, so it's something related to the way that this is supposed to work here. So it's saying that this type here is pretty.doc. So I think it's because it only has one thing here. So what if I put like this? Because yeah, but I think it's not gonna work because of this, but I wanna see what happens. Because I think what it's saying is basically that this pretty 0 here, it gets resolved into pretty.doc, but the return of the other side is supposed to be the doc.n. So I guess I could like do this there and then see. This is the issue, is like I don't understand very well how it works. Because here is like, based on the way that it was explained there, this is supposed to be a generic or algebraic data type, which is similar to the other one that I was looking at before, which is the term. So like this is like providing a constructor every time you use this usage keyword, and then this one is creating an instance of the usage that is going to be called this pretty here, and then it's like determining what each thing is gonna the constructor of each thing. So the way that I'm thinking about it is that this type is gonna be replaced by whatever you put here when you call this class, and this class is of this type here. It's basically defining what each type is supposed to be, what each constructor is supposed to be from the usage algebraic data type. And that's what it's doing. But what I don't understand is like, what is the relationship between the two things? Because here I think that this pretty here is not from anywhere else. Is defining as a keyword that you use. So like, is the name of a language, let's say, the name of a function. So it would be like on C++, like saying like pretty and then whatever, like void pretty. So like the pretty is the name of the function, and then it accepts a 0 as an argument, I think. And then it's saying that the return of this 0 function would be this thing here. But this is the thing that is weird. So like the error comes from this mismatching types here, in the way that is resolving the types between whatever is on the left and what this is going to return, which is this type here. So I'm not really sure. I'm going to try to build like this and see what they are against there. Because I guess the question would be, how does it resolve the type on the left? Because it's supposed to be a generic thing here. So I'm gonna ask that to ChatGPT. So, also usage is an instance of pre. Not sure if that's. It might be right, but I don't understand how this works. Because obviously it's creating another one here as well. It's also. So let me see what error I get when I put another argument here. Because this one is using more than one argument. So maybe this is like something. These are the parts that are hard to figure out. Because I'm not really sure what is a keyword from the language, what comes from a library, and what is being defined on the code here. And I don't think I can trust the syntax highlighting, so that's the problem. Because this pretty and this compare could be coming from. So like based on the ChatGPT's explanation there, I'm not really sure if this is supposed to be a class. Like if oh maybe it is actually because of this. So maybe this is a class from this. So I was thinking about the wrong way. So pretty might be a function coming from this. But at the end I don't understand what it means. Does this exist? So this line means defines how to convert the zero constructor of the usage type into a pretty printed representation. Mm. There must be this thing here, but this again is not defined here, I think. So it's different than the way that I was thinking that it is. And now I'm not 100% sure what it means there. So I was thinking more from in terms from other languages. I was thinking like almost as if it's declaring a class. And but yeah. So I assume that this art here has to come from somewhere else, even though it's not being specific. It's like explicitly shown here, but it has to come from another library, I think. So I'm not really sure what it means though. How does this work? So I think that the reason why I complain here is because this function here is supposed to accept only one argument. I guess I can try it like this, just see what happens here. Just see what error is gonna. It's not a visible method. So I have to see if I can find the definition. So I'm gonna ask GPT just because last time it was probably easier to just ask. But the problem is, I guess I can search for the class. And here it is. So it isn't supposed to be the same thing. So like it seems that this has the same signature of the other one. Char doc. So they're supposed to return the same thing. So maybe I'm misunderstanding the error there. Hmm. I guess you already explained there, but I think so. I think that's it might be because of the context. But they're both supposed to return the same function though. I think is I'm not really sure like what is the best because I think I was already asked. I'm not really sure if I'm gonna be able to get more or yeah more information from ChatGPT. Because now, like, I think that's so. What I was thinking before is that this would be like defined here, but now I'm thinking that this is a function from this, which comes from the same library as the other one, but based on the way that is defined here, it's supposed to return the same. So it's a function that is gonna receive this type as an argument, and it's gonna return this stuff here. And the other one is basically very similar, if not the same. It just receives a char and returns this type. So what this is doing is, but this is the part that I don't understand. So what questions can I ask here? Just try to clarify this. I guess one question I can ask is what is the purpose of doing this? And I'm trying to, I have to clarify more, like what exactly does it mean? I'm not sure if that's the right way to put it, but as I can look into as a contrast with the other one as well. So this one, it defines the thing here. So I guess it's the same thing, so it's meant to be used with the usage, but I'm not really sure what it means. Like, is it supposed to say that in the context of the pretty, you're supposed to call the function? Because it's like instantiating. I'm trying to grounds back to. So maybe that's a good question. Is to as ChatGPT how it would look like on C++, but I think that there's probably not like direct translation. But I guess like the closest thing would be a polymorphism where you have a function and then you declare the function in multiple different ways. So yeah, maybe looking into the way that it's supposed to be used is gonna clarify. I still have no idea what this means. It's very confusing. I'm struggling to like think about it in terms of other programming languages, like what it would look like. And even if there isn't a direct correlation, the fundamental principles have to be somewhere, they have to be similar. They're not going to be the same, but they have to be similar. But I'm struggling to understand what it's supposed to do. Because here, like, it doesn't mean anything here. Like, this defining this as a, with this type here. But then, like, what the fuck does this mean? I don't understand. So maybe it replaces the value there. Yeah, I'm just more confused than I was before. Because usage is a type, so when you, but then like things that it's kind of hard to think about the right questions as well. Like, does it mean when you use usage in the context of a pretty class? Yeah, but then still like you can't really think about the question. Hmm. Let's see if I can find other places where this is gonna be used. But that wouldn't make sense. So I guess let me think I got the question. But this is not very good. Uh, I guess I'm just gonna ask the first question. So the way that I'm thinking about it right now is like the thing that is supposed to be used across the code is the usage. So this is defining a type of usage that has these three generic constructors. And what this is doing is specifying what's gonna happen. But this is the part that I'm struggling to come up with something to ask. Like, is this defining what happens when you try to use usage in the context of a pretty class, or is something else? Like when you use the usage type inside of a pretty class, the first type is gonna call this function and with this argument here, or like is something else that is, I don't know. Or maybe like this would be, maybe usage here would be a here on the class definition. Maybe that's how it works. Yeah, so it might be how it works here. So A is a generic type, so in that case is usage. I think that this is probably what is going on. So like the class pretty is coming from this library, but on the instance there it kind of overrides the class maybe. And then that's why, so like it's kind of defining the function there, the pretty function, to accept the zero as an argument or the usage as an argument here on the pretty function and return this type, which would be the other function. But that wouldn't make sense, I think. But this is supposed to be equal to this pretty here. So maybe that's how it works. I think I'm kind of starting to understand. Like it's changing the behavior of the pretty class. So I'm gonna Go back to that. But then how does it know? That's the question. But I think that's probably not what's going on. Or maybe it is, based on the example here. So I think based on ChatGPT response, I think I understand finally what's happening. Like the usage is basically replacing the value on A there. So like this is like the definition of the class. So it could be viewed as a like template class on C++, I think, where A would be the template type. So the usage is the current template type. So it's instantiating an kind of like an instance of the class using the usage as a type, and then is overriding the behavior of the pretty function based on that definition there. So like usage is a thing. It's kind of like an enum that has options, and then is defining what happens on each option, what function is going to run. I think that's what is going on. But I still don't understand how to solve the issue here. The rigid type variable bound by the type signature for pretty for all and bindings include. I'm not really sure if I understand what this means. Like in this situation, 0 would be the A here, I think. I'm gonna ask again what the error means. It's basically like I think I get. So the way that I'm thinking now is that the error comes because the n type is bounded. Like it depends on the context in which you use. But like I don't understand what it means. I think that the error comes from this part here, like it says there, and it's because of mismatch on the types. But it is extremely confusing to understand this syntax. Not gonna lie. So like, and this is something that I struggled since last time, which is like the function declaration is very confusing to me because I think on the previous times, on one example that I was looking at, it seemed that the whatever is on the right of the equal would be the return statement, and what is on the left is like the arguments. But here I think it's different. So I think what is happening is that is replacing the usage with the instance of the it's creating an instance of the pretty class based on the usage type. And then here is the declaring or defining the behavior of like what's gonna happen when you call the pretty function from this instance here. I still don't understand how this is gonna be used outside of this. I'm not sure if I think when you use usage in the context of a pretty class, and then you call the pretty function, depending which kind of these arguments you pass, is gonna actually run this function here. And they are supposed to have so both this function, the pretty function, and the pretty char have the same pattern there based on the library. So this one receives a as an argument and returns a doc n. And this one is basically the same thing, but here is char instead of a. So it receives char and returns this thing. And even here is saying that is equal. I think that the difference on this here is that this defines a type. And this, I'm not really sure how this works, the equal here. But I think it's like making a char equal to the pretty function. So basically saying that it's the same thing. So I think that in order for this to work, the n is gonna depend on the context of the class here, because it's bound by this pretty thing. So like there is a mismatch in the type that is returned as a result of this call here, and as a result of this call here. I think that's what it means, the error, but I have no idea how to solve this. And I'm not really sure if that's exactly what is going on. It's saying is a rigid type variable bounds. So maybe I should write down bind the type signature for pretty file. So it's saying that the type is defined on here. If I search for this here. So it's saying is defining here maybe. So maybe it's saying that it's not returning the n type on this call here. But according to the declaration or definition or whatever, it's supposed to return on the pretty.char. So I think it's saying that it's only getting this doc here on the return. and it's not getting this thing here. So, but I think when I put the dock thing here, it's not gonna work anyway. But the problem is not this, it's the other type, I think. It's not gonna work. Like the question would be how to change this so that it does return the, because I have no control over the function, the pretty.char function. So the only thing that I could do potentially is change the function that's been called, but then I have to understand how the rest of the library is supposed to work. So let me see if I put pretty 0 here, just see what happens. So it solves, but it's pointless because it's basically the same thing, I think. So I think that I'm pretty sure that the problem is in the context of the thing, I think. So now is yeah. So let me replace all three of them to see if it's gonna work. I think the issue is the context of the functions. So they both have the same return type, but because one is being called inside of the class and the other one isn't, the one that isn't doesn't bound, or the value of the type is being bound outside of the function. So it means that when you use, so basically like on this situation here of the char, this type here is defined somewhere else, I think. So it's bound by the for thing for all there, and on the class it isn't, or maybe it's the other way around. So maybe here, because it's saying that is bounded on this for all, but here I don't think. I think this is defining this thing here. So maybe I'm gonna search what this does as well. So now there's another error, but I think that the changing this stuff here solves the other one. Yeah, so I think it's on the right, the function on the right, which is coming from the pretty class, binds the context of the return type to a different thing than the one on the left. That's the error, I think. So I think that this is probably happening because of these other errors here. I think what happens is that from the moment that they created this library to now, this library probably from the moment they created this code here to now, this library here that they are using probably changed. So this might be the reason why. And then this creates the other issue there, but like if it is because of the difference in library, then I don't understand. Because I think that's like in the way that I have in my mind, they are supposed to come from the same library on this thing here. So it wouldn't make sense for the mismatching types from the return should be for the cause of that should be that you have two different libraries. I think that wouldn't make sense. So it's complaining about this. So I want to ask how to solve this. I'm not sure if just replacing the name in the middle is gonna work. I think it has to be pre-printer in the middle. These errors are not very good. They don't explain exactly what is wrong there. I have to. I'm not really sure how to ask questions though. Like, I have to clarify how does this work here. The way that I'm thinking about it is that the first thing is gonna be a built-in module. But if it is coming from the other library, I don't think that's the case here. Like, how does this work? What do you put as the first thing? These ones I'm pretty sure that they are built-in, which makes me think that this is should be built-in as well. And then the rest of the thing is just the relative path from the module. I think like this would make sense that it's a class. But the problem is that I'm not really sure how to think about what questions to ask to clarify this. That's the problem. Like, what can I ask on a search engine to find content that explains maybe relative paths on imports or import paths? And I write down this. Because the videos on modules that I watched, they just explain the import keyword. So now we did interesting. Let's see if this works. Or it's gonna complain about these other ones, I think. Or maybe not, but I did complain. So now it's the same errors as before. So I have to, because the problem with this error message here is that I don't understand what I'm supposed to put here. Like, I tested this one because I think it's the one that makes most sense, since saying that, like, it's basically saying that the library, the module is deprecated, and I should use the other one. But if I just put this one, it's gonna complain that it doesn't exist. So I think that it makes more sense to replace this, because this one is probably built in, based on the other pattern here. So maybe I should erase the other stuff from here. Yeah, not find module. So what if I put everything there? Or put like this? I think it's gonna say the same thing. But it might be because of the file here, or the import thing. So here it defines this other stuff here. It doesn't. It has text, but it doesn't have text with the caps lock. So it's saying that I need to add here. Maybe if I put here, right there. So it did solve the other ones. So obviously this is not gonna, because not the same thing there that they are doing. So I'm gonna go back and try to see. But I'm gonna stop streaming now because I think it's better to just study the concepts. So I'm gonna study the stuff that I'm confused by here. I think that the instance thing, I'm pretty sure that it is the way that I was thinking now. So I'm gonna go back to the way that I was before. So basically, the mental model that I have right now on how this works, but I'm gonna search. I'm gonna see if I can find content. The problem is that there's a lot of other stuff that I have to watch that is more on the abstract side that it is also used in Haskell a lot. So like basically category theory, monads, monoids, stuff like that. So I'm not really sure if I'm gonna be able to study all the other stuff until next time that I stream, but I think basically the method model that I have now is that the library defines the class pretty, and what this code is doing is that it's creating an instance of that class with this. So like pretty in my mind would be as if it's a templated class on C++. Like that's the analogy I'm making on my mind. And then the A type there that they define is like the templated type. And the usage is going to be the thing that replaces the A here. So what the clothes there is doing is redefining what happens on the pretty function from the pretty class when you are using the usage type. But I still don't understand very well. I think what this is meant, the way that it's meant to be used outside of this is like the usage thing is the thing that is gonna be used outside. But I'm not really so for example, when you use usage and then you pass a 0 as an argument, it's gonna call this. But then I don't understand very well. So I guess the context is gonna decide which instance is gonna use from usage. It's very confusing to understand. So I'm probably gonna search for the instance keyword and stuff like that. This should see if I becomes more clear on how it works. And the error there is because of the mismatch in the return times, because this is a function that comes from the pretty class, and the other one, the char here is the one defined on the library outside of the class. So it's saying that based on the context of where the return type of these two functions is at is going to be different, because outside of the class, either outside or inside the class, the return type there, one of the return types is bounded by another part of the code from the library, which means that they're going to return two different types. That's the error I think that is showing there. But I have no idea how to fix this, and I still am confused by how exactly this is supposed to be used. It's here, like it's saying, I think the main thing that is going to be used is the usage. So I guess what Haskell is going to do is going to figure out, it's kind of like a matching thing. So based on whatever type you pass to usage, is gonna use whatever definition fits first. And I think it's based on the order that you define. So first is gonna test to see if the type you are using usage. But this is the thing that is weird, because usage itself is the type being used on the instance. That's why it's very confusing to me. So I guess it's based on what is using usage, is going to figure out what is the instance supposed to be, and after it matches that, it's gonna match the usage argument so that it replaces the function on the usage. So first, it's gonna resolve to see what kind of instance it's gonna use, in the context that usage is being used, and then after that, it's gonna figure out what is the argument for usage, and then it's gonna figure out what function to call based on the argument. which is extremely confusing. So in this situation here, it would depend on this n, which is probably a constructor from another library. So this probably is something that accepts 3 different arguments. And then this one is going to be an instance of either one of those classes there, either the ord or the pretty class. And depending which one matches the best or matches first, is going to be the instance of usage that is used on that situation. And then after that, it figures out based on the type. So whatever this type is going to be resolved at. So this, for example, let's say this resolves to 0, then it's going to use the pretty char function from the other class there to figure out what is going to return. I think that's the mental model that I have right now, but obviously I'm not sure. So I'm going to watch a bunch of content, study more, and then next time I'm probably going to continue to study this stuff here. I want to understand Haskell enough to be able to understand code related to type theory. So I'm probably gonna, I'm not sure if I'm gonna spend too much time on this. I think what I'm gonna do is try to finish the assembly code as fast as possible, assembly examples, so I have on Anki cards. Then once I finish that, I'm probably gonna, and if this takes too long, I'm probably gonna go back to the stuff on Godot that I was doing, and then try to do this stuff here and the other one. Because, or probably go back to Godot and then finish, after I finish the first scene there that I have, which there's I think 3 different components that I need to finish. Once I finish those 3 components and I finish the scene, then I'm going to spend a bunch of time on this other stuff, on type theory and compilers. So I'm probably going to try to balance the two different things until that I get to the points, and then once I have the scene finished on Godot, I'm going to go back to fully focusing on this stuff here. But probably next time I'm just going to continue to try to figure this out. And I think this is a good way to learn about this, because then it forces me to try to understand the concepts to try to fix the problem. So it's probably a good idea. And then as I do this, I can write questions and write the doubts, or keep the doubts that I have in my mind, so that when I watch the content, I have context in the background to see what is important to understand. So I'm gonna keep doing this until I understand enough to understand this code here, and then probably once I understand this code, I'm gonna move on to the more complex one, I think, which is the one that I'm more interested on, which is this repository here. This is basically implementation of type theory, a type theory compiler in Haskell. So yeah, see you next time.